Because Your People Matter. A playbook for managers, entrepreneurs and leaders. Written and read by John Berry and Sue Berry. First published in hardback edition in December 2018. Second edition published in paperback and ebook in August 2020. Both published by Grosvenor House, Tolworth, UK. This third edition was recorded as 12 chapters in autumn 2022 and is available on YouTube. Chapter 4. Starting Operations. 4.1. People and Work. 4.1.1. What work is. In Chapter 1, we identified that the organisation could be likened to a machine. This machine takes in a mix of raw materials, technology and human effort that together output something useful by way of deliverables to a customer or other stakeholder. In return for these deliverables, the company invoices and receives payment. In Chapter 1, we also introduced the idea of modelling, emphasising the need for the manager to be able to abstract their thinking to distinguish the big picture from the noise of the work itself. And we introduced an input-output model of a typical trading firm or company. This is shown again in Figure 4.1. Operations is the term used to describe the various activities within the company that work together to convert inputs to outputs. As a function, operations is often described by models. Modelling is, after all, the only real way to describe the set of abstract concepts that define what goes on inside the machine. In such models, we might have owners of the firm, managers acting as agents for the owners, employees and suppliers. And such models can be elaborated to ever greater levels of detail as needed by the managers to understand and analyse the work. This chapter discusses how the firm works, how it's described, what holds it together, and how it comes about that the people do work to realise the desired outcomes. 4.1.2. Work and Contracts. Typically, the relationship a firm has with its customers is through a contract of sale. The essence of this contract is that we, the company, will supply you, the customer, goods and services under the following conditions. Other organisation types will likewise have contracts between the organisation and its customers or stakeholders. Some may just be promises. But one way or another, there's an upstream agreement or expectation of some sort. The contract of sale in the trading firm is important because it triggers a chain of downstream requirements for other agreements. Importantly, this contract of sale spawns relationships and agreements between the firm and its employees and its suppliers, and we discuss these in more depth below. 4.1.3. The Theory of the Firm. Why is it that the firm came about? Why did an entrepreneur making and supplying goods and services to others ever evolve to eventually become a multinational concern? There is nothing God-given about this evolution and the structures of the firm finally arrived at. As Ronald Coase questioned, why does a firm evolve at all in an economy? What ultimately controls its size? And what controls this expansion from an industry of many individual entrepreneurs to a few large firms? Coase and others pondered this issue and came up with the theory of the firm. It goes something like this. In the beginning, there are entrepreneurs, people who have an idea and realize that they can produce a good or a service and sell it to customers. These entrepreneurs sense the market price for their goods and services and enter contracts for supply with customers based on this market-determined price. These entrepreneurs are aware of the cost of production and supply, and within the scope of costs and market price, they aim to maximize their profit. As demand grows for the entrepreneur's good or service, the entrepreneur realizes that they can't produce enough to satisfy their chosen market. To increase supply, the only option open to them is to contract out part of the production to another entrepreneur who is in business and specializes in supplying that part. This will be a part that the first entrepreneur is less able to produce, but is nonetheless essential to satisfying the customer. The price charged by the contracted supplier is set by the market price for that part. The first entrepreneur now has a supply chain, and in cases of complex goods and services, this supply chain will comprise many supplier agreements. It will be a system of relationships with others, each comprising part specifications, contracts, and prices. Each supplier agreement takes effort to negotiate and manage, and as systems engineers know all too well, errors collect at boundaries. In a complex system of subcontracts, there are lots of boundaries. The entrepreneur must specify the parts and check their quality and function. The entrepreneur is responsible for the assembly of the parts. The quantities for supply by each supplier will be forecast and ordered by the first entrepreneur, and unless carefully managed, will result in increased inventory as the parts are stored ready for use. Such a system of relationships takes some significant effort to organize. Each supplier is in business for themselves and hence will have sales and marketing costs and will expect to realize a profit. They will include all those costs and profit in calculating the price that they would wish to charge. The first entrepreneur will always be comparing the bought-in prices from their supply chain with the cost of producing each good or service in-house using raw materials. Of course, if they were to produce in-house, they would need to employ and pay an employee to do this. At some stage, and for each entrepreneur and market, it becomes non-cost effective to buy in parts, and the entrepreneur will switch to produce in-house. The entrepreneur will also consider how, by employing someone to produce many different goods and services in-house, or previously the subject of discrete supplier agreements, they can further gain from internal flexibility. Internal flexibility will remove the need to forecast demand accurately and will allow the entrepreneur to cope with demand peaks and troughs by moving employees' production facilities internally. As the entrepreneur grows, employing more and more workers, their internal costs will rise. Efficiencies initially apparent in bringing the production in-house will be overtaken by the inefficiencies of having tens, hundreds, or even thousands of employees all under one roof, all needing direction and management. Frederick Brooks summed up this phenomenon quite well in his book, The Mythical Man Month. For every worker added to an endeavor, a growing additional management effort, and hence additional headcount or overhead, is needed just to make the endeavor successful. So the firm, as an entity comprising entrepreneur and employees, is created to escape the costs of an extensive entrepreneur-to-entrepreneur supply system. Ultimately, its size is limited by growing internal overhead costs. Every part will have its own point of equilibrium. For some parts, internal production and hence employment of workers will be the best option. For others, perhaps more specialist parts, the balance will never swing in favor of in-house. And so it is that all firms comprise entrepreneurs, employees, and suppliers. 4.1.4 Differing employee types. Frank Knight's thesis from 1921 suggests a wonderful definition of the employee and employer. Employment is the system under which the confident and venturesome assume the risk for or insure the doubtful and timid by guaranteeing the latter specified income in return for an assignment in the actual results. With human nature as we know it, it would be impractical or very unusual for one man to guarantee to another a definite result without being given the power to direct his work. And on the other hand, the second party would not place himself under the direction of the first without such a guarantee of wages. The result of this manifold specialization of function is the enterprise and wage system of industry. Its existence in the world is the direct result of the fact of uncertainty. Coase goes on to criticize this as overly simplistic, but it serves us well here to describe why it is that some remain as entrepreneurs while others become employees. As the firm grows, the entrepreneur As owner, we'll inevitably find that they cannot manage the employees on their own. The entrepreneur then typically employs a manager. A manager is an agent of the entrepreneur. Managers are generally also employees. In larger firms, the original entrepreneurs or owners sit on the board of directors, delegating to managers to run the firm. The concept of the evolving firm with its owners, directors, managers, employees, and suppliers is shown in Figure 4.2. 4.1.5 Practical implications of the theory. Apart from being academically interesting, the theory of the firm is important for managers. Their firm will need to acquire the right balance of products and services to satisfy its customers. Some of these goods and services will be produced and supplied using in-house employees with a set of skills and knowledge working with raw materials and using particular technologies. In cases where there is a cost benefit to be had, managers should not produce the goods and services in-house, but should set up supplier agreements and buy those in. In-house and bought-in goods and services will together yield the total goods and services needed for a composite solution. The theory of the firm tells us that the manager must assess the relative merits of the source of its goods and services and must engage in what's termed the manager's make or buy decision. Ultimately, the firm's competitive advantage is achieved when all make or buy decisions are optimized with cost as the key criterion. Practically, when a good or service costs more to buy than make, the manager should gear up to produce it locally. And of course, the converse should lead the firm to buy in the good or service. When making such evaluations, it's important to consider all costs over an appropriate time. And ultimately, as the firm grows, the manager must continually reassess the various costs and adjust the source of goods and services. 4.1.6 Systematizing the firm. From the above discussion on how the firm comes about, there is a suggestion of form, but we get no inkling of how the various contributors are ordered. Scientific theory tells us that order is not natural. Quite the opposite, with disorder prevailing in firms without input of significant management effort. Managers are required by directors and owners to create order in search of certainty. Order comes about by shaping the organization's activities to be predictable. For directors and owners, the unknown is very problematic and maybe even daunting. The manager's job is therefore to systematize. If the system fails to return the output wanted, it can, in an ordered fashion, be changed and evolved in search of optimum. We discussed in Chapter 1 how the company can be thought of as a machine, as a system that does something. We also discussed how the company could be modeled at a higher level of abstraction. To be able to build a system, we need detail. Operations is the defining of that detail such that the manager can construct the organization to achieve the aims of the directors and owners. Typically, the order that the manager creates is defined by processes, defining sequences of events in the system, relationships between the entities in the system, information flows and storage within the system, and definition of the key human and machine players, and of course, how they are used in the system. 4.1.7 Building a company system. A company is a complex system. To synthesize the system and realize the necessary detail, we need now to break the system into discernible parts. There's no established approach to this, though norms have evolved. Figure 4.3 shows a system model for a simple company. This type of modeling, where the machine is deconstructed into component parts, is one of the most useful. There's no effort here to show inputs, outputs, flows, or any other functional detail. System models simply show the boundaries, first of the company system itself, then between the subsystems at the next level down. Anything outside the company is outside the system boundary. In this simple company, orders are acquired, goods and services delivered, customers supported post-sale, and finances and people managed. We could label these in a host of different ways, and there could be any number of them. It's for the manager to build the firm needed to meet their strategy. 4.2. Instructing people to do work. We know from the above that the company comprises entrepreneurs, managers, employees, and suppliers. If synthesized in a particular way using technology and consuming raw materials, the firm has the potential to produce the required deliverables. But unless something else happens, unless there's action, all will remain static. People must act for outcomes to be realized. 4.2.1 The role of the manager. In Chapter 1, we established that the manager and leader were one. Managers lead when they influence their followers' motivation. We also suggested that some regard management as a pedestrian administrative activity likened to the army adjutant. The manager's job, like an adjutant, is to create the environment in which employees will do work. And that covers everything from buildings and vehicles to raw materials and methods of production. As we noted in Chapter 1, the entrepreneur as manager does this themselves in the early days, later delegating to others. Simply leading by motivating followers won't cut it. The manager must now take direct action to build the environment and instruct the employees. 4.2.2 The employer-employee relationship. The employee and the firm enter an employment contract. In the UK, much of this is covered in statute, and the contract is automatically entered as soon as the employee starts work. The essence of the employment contract is that the employee agrees to come under the firm's direction in return for a wage. The employment contract sets out the conditions of this contract of service. As an agent of the firm, the manager can therefore tell the employee what to do day to day. But only in a simple firm would that be enough to create a functioning organization. The manager must form those orders into operating policies and procedures that take the place of orders. In some designed environment, employees must be caused to do what's needed to satisfy the customer. 4.2.3 The supplier to firm relationship. The firm enters a contract of sale with its customers. In this, the firm undertakes to supply some good or undertake some service in return for payment. If the firm is trading in the consumer market, much of this contract too will be set out in statute. In the business-to-business market, there's less statutory customer protection, and what's agreed must be expressed. The work instructions from manager to employee must embody what has been agreed with the customer. As we noted in Chapter 1, many firms start by contracting out work to suppliers. While the employee is bound to do what they're told, suppliers are free agents and need to agree what they'll do through a contract for services. The contract with a supplier is like the contract between the firm and its customer. The two must agree the goods and services and the payment. Managers will place orders for goods and services on suppliers to meet some essential need within the firm's contract of sale. Generally, what happens is for suppliers' goods and services to be delivered to the employees for further work and then aggregation with their own efforts before delivery to the firm's customers. Managers must therefore create instructions for both employees and suppliers. 4.2.4 Breaking work into parts. All managers in all firms must go through a deliberate action to take the contract of sale for goods and services and break it down into what must be done, what must be delivered, and by when. There are many ways of doing this and a plethora of software applications to help. Our favourite tool is the Work Breakdown Structure, or WBS. All contracts for goods and services comprise smaller work packages. Those work packages aggregate to yield interim deliverables. Those interim deliverables aggregate to meet the obligations of the contract. Even a visit to the hairdressers might be broken down into 4 work packages: agreeing the scope and style, shampooing, cutting, drying and styling, and then acceptance and payment. And each can be broken down into even smaller packages. Whilst in this example a temporal progression is assumed, there is no intention to produce a sequential time plan. It's purely an exercise in work breakdown. The WBS example in Figure 4.4 shows what's needed. This contract has been broken into 6 major tasks. Each major task comprises between 2 and 8 subtasks. Interim deliverables are shown as documents at the foot of each task. The WBS approach allows the contract for delivery to be broken into subtasks, each with its own deliverables. In small firms, those subtasks might be arranged to be of a size that can be completed by one employee. In larger firms, further breakdown will be needed. Subtasks may be the responsibility of employees or suppliers, with an employee taking responsibility for aggregating all deliverables in a task. There are myriad ways in which to construct a WBS, and managers must find one that works for them and their business. Each subtask can be defined completely, unambiguously, and such that it fits with the others. Each can be elaborated to become an instruction given to an employee or supplier, which, with policies and procedures, defines all that needs to be done. 4.2.5 Training versus Processes. No manager wants to spend their time detailing everything that is to be done. At some level of abstraction, the detailing must stop, and the manager must rely on the existing skills and knowledge, the competencies of the employee. Managers are therefore faced with determining the level of abstraction needed for their technology and employees. Take hairdressing, for example. The manager may dictate how the customer is to be greeted, how the stylist determines what is to be done, the standard catalogue of styles to be offered, and the list of techniques for cutting that the salon wants to hold as its signature methods. At some point, though, the manager must stop defining. Take Figure 4.4 and the subtask Do Fees Economic Model under Task 4. This will be done by an economics consultant and is perhaps an extreme to illustrate the point. The consultant will propose various models, discuss with colleagues which are appropriate for the country involved, and build the final models in Microsoft Excel. None of this activity can be written down by the manager. It's just too complicated. The manager's role in this is to recruit a suitably qualified consultant in the first place and to ensure that they are suitably trained in the firm's methods. For more routine work, there is more of a trade-off. On the one hand, the manager can write a process model that sets out exactly what the employee is to do. The employee is then directed and controlled to follow that. On the other hand, the manager can train the employee in what to do and to direct and retrain as needed to achieve compliance. 4.2.6 Instructing Employees and Suppliers. The central document used to instruct an employee in what they are to achieve in their job is the job description, or JD. In the UK, the law states that the employee must be given a statement of their duties. Such a statement is wholly inadequate. Employees should have a comprehensive job description that defines between 6 and 8 key accountabilities or responsibilities. A responsibility is just that. It's not a duty, but something that the employee is responsible for achieving. It should be of the form, do something to achieve a result. In our hairdressing example, it might define that the scope, style, and price are to be agreed clearly with the customer. 2 other responsibilities might define the core work, while other responsibilities might set expectation for clearing up, taking payments, and engaging in continuous professional development in hairstyling. The JD is not an instruction on how to do a job. Operational policies and procedures do that. The JD is, however, the central document that instructs the job holder to act. Instructions to suppliers are different. Since the contract with the supplier is for delivery of goods and services, the instruction here must be in the form of an order and a specification. 4.3 People and Technology. Economists would argue that firms comprise people and financial capital. That's true, but as well as funding the ordinary operations of the firm, that financial capital is used to purchase technology. For the discussion about work done, firms therefore comprise people and technology. Some, like consulting firms, are light on technology, perhaps only exploiting conventional information technology tools such as word processors and spreadsheets. The capability of others, like car manufacturing plants, comprises mainly technology, with some being described as lights-out environments where robots work remotely monitored by a few high-skill employees. At its simplest, people and technology together give the firm capability to do work. 4.3.1 Capability and Competitive Advantage. A firm's competitive advantage is its ability to sell more and to make more profit when compared to its competitors. It will sell more if its competitors prefer its goods and services over those of the firm's competitors. The firm's competitive advantage is determined by its capability to supply what its customers need. The manager's role is to optimize the firm's capability, thereby maximizing its competitive advantage. The balance between the contribution made by technology and humans is in part determined by the norms of the industry and in part by the firm's strategy. Both are, to a greater or lesser extent, under the manager's control. 4.3.2 Defining technology by its function. We typically think of technology as artifacts. Technology is the smartphone, the motor car, the array of solar panels or the like. But it's only when technology interacts with or is used by humans, and specifically by human systems of work, that technology has any meaning. It's only when technology affords humans a capability that we get excited. Technology gives humans the ability to do things that, without the technology, they would not be able to do. Technology affords a person a capability. An example of required capability might be that the user shall be able to compute the fuel efficiency of a car as the user drives along the road. There's no hint here about how this might be done using technology. The technology could be an odometer and a fuel gauge. If the user has high competence, it's possible that they could use some mental arithmetic to divide distance by consumption. If they have medium competence, a personal calculator might also be useful. And if they have low competence, the machine may need an inbuilt computer and a display to do the calculation and report the fuel efficiency in miles per gallon or kilometers per litre. In each case, technology function and human competence must be specified, and in these examples, the balance in each of the three differs. Technology is specified by its function. In the above high human competence case, this function might read as the system shall report both distance travelled and fuel consumed. In the low competence case, we'd need to add and make a calculation of distance divided by consumption and output this result to a display visible to the driver. When the user competence is low, the technology function must be high for the same capability, and vice versa. Technology must always be specified for a given or assumed human competence. This idea of balance between competence and technology is shown in Figure 4.5. 4.3.3 Defining people by their competencies. Competence is the aggregation of all competencies held by an employee. An individual competency is the ability to do something given a particular technology. The ability to do something with that technology yields a capability. Whether, of course, the employee does what's wanted with that technology, thereby turning the capability into an outcome, is not the issue here. That's the subject of later chapters where we add topics like motivation. So what gives the employee a competency for a given technology? The answer lies in whether they have the right personal characteristics. The key personal characteristics that determine if a job can be done are intelligence, personality, skills, and knowledge. Whilst this is an oversimplification, it's adequate for now. 4.3.4 Balancing people and technology. This idea of balance shows the dilemma that all managers face. They must fix either technology or competence. If they hire people to do work, to give a capability, they must hire them with a particular technology in mind. If they're about to specify new technology, they must have in mind a particular group of employees who will work with it. Of course, norms of society, education, and industry will dictate the personal characteristics and the technology that will be developed with this in mind. Nonetheless, this balance or duality gives managers a mechanism for change and organizational development. 4.3.5 Codifying knowledge in technology. Information technology is a special case and exemplifies the idea of this balance because it can store knowledge. Knowledge in this case can be information that can be retrieved, and processes which can be run automatically, and algorithms that can compute answers using complex maths. The three together, information technology, knowledge, and algorithms, are termed artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence can be stored in the technology. Knowledge can be codified in the machine. Artificial intelligence effectively balances all the personal characteristics of the employee and not just their intelligence per se. 4.3.6 Implementing change through technology. The manager's options are illustrated by example. Consider a manager in the insurance business. If a customer wants a quotation for insurance, they call a broker. The broker will consult various paper journals and calculate a price. They will call the customer back and provide a quotation. Alternatively, the customer can go online, enter their details, and get a quotation on screen. The information involved is the same, but in the second scenario, technology has displaced the broker. The choice of balance point between competence and technology is the manager's, considering their firm's strategy. The firm's strategy operates, of course, considering the norms of the industry, regulations, and other statutes, and the shareholder's expectation and, of course, the market need. 4.3.7 The impact of technology on people. The balance point between competence and technology is for the manager to select. Human competence can be changed, but only slowly. Technology can be changed in an instant, assuming, of course, that the desired technology function is presently available. As innovation drives the development of more technology function in industry, so managers can reduce the required competence and simply purchase ever-increasing technology function. The result, of course, is the concern that people have that robots will steal our jobs. For a fixed capability, this would be true, but in search of competitive advantage, all managers seek ever greater capability. Technology function and human competence can therefore evolve together. And finally, a note of caution. This model assumes that competence and technology are interchangeable, that technology can always replace competence and vice versa. There are many exceptions and limitations to this. Presently, debates rage in both academia and the press, debates about what can be done and what can't be done with technology, and what will and will not be able to be done in 10, 20 or more years' time. 4.4.1 Defining quality. To the layperson, quality is often thought of as beauty. To an engineer, that beauty comes from compliance with a specification. That specification might be in their head or dictated in standards, norms, and expectations. Software code can be beautiful by being parsimonious, giving the required function using the minimum of code while embracing highly effective algorithms. A bridge can exude quality, and like software, perhaps this too would be parsimonious, spanning the river using the minimum of materials whilst meeting load-bearing, safety, and cost specifications. In management, quality fundamentally involves the business doing what it says it will. If the customer and the firm agree that a supplied bottle of beer shall be of a particular taste, specific gravity, and volume, and the supplied bottles conform, that's quality. If sometimes there's a little less in the bottles, that would be a non-conformity. And we not expect the supplier to be entitled to open the supplied bottles and top up those falling short. That gives the idea that quality is also getting the specification right first time with zero defects. Ultimately in business, the customer is king, so only the customer can dictate what is and is not quality. Of course, if there's a contract involved, the customer and supplier would expect to agree on the meaning of quality. But ultimately, the customer is the final arbiter. Quality is therefore meeting the customer's needs, whether expressed individually or collectively as a market. If the goods and services are fit for the purpose that the customer has in mind, that's quality. And so since there are many internal contracts between people and departments within a firm, the idea of customer and quality extends to those two. Overall, something is of quality if it complies with an agreed specification. But even the degree of agreement is open to interpretation. Customers have become more discerning and demanding in their interpretation, and industry has continually improved compliance tolerances over the decades to suit. This leads also to the idea of quality as continuous improvement. In the end, if a firm sets its price based on compliance with a specification and any non-conformity met with reaction of one form or another from its customers, it'll cost the firm. Poor quality therefore costs money. Good quality wins customers and gives more certain outcomes. 4.4.2 On what does quality depend? Quality is about the ability of the firm's systems to meet the specifications required by customer contracts. By the arguments in the two subsections above, quality depends on the people and the technology in those systems. The firm can only meet its agreed specifications with the right human competence and the right technology function. And achieving quality depends on having the right balance between the two. Conceivably, therefore, improved quality comes from changing that balance, thereby improving human competence or technology function, or both. 4.4.3 Designing quality into work. Historically in manufacturing, quality was controlled into deliverables, with quality controllers sitting at the end of the production line inspecting products. Non-conforming product was rejected and reworked. Managers soon realized that to avoid rework costs, specifications had to be met first time with zero defect and zero reject. To achieve this, quality had to be designed in to the work done. There are many techniques that can be used, but the essence of quality, of designing quality in, is to ensure that the work instruction is right. That if the work is done in this way, the specification of the delivered goods and services will be compliant and meet the customer need. Designing for quality demands effort up front in quality assurance rather than later in quality control. This work definition assumes that a particular technology and a particular employee competence balance. 4.4.4 The role of peers. There are several techniques that can be used to achieve quality in deliverables. The first is to, metaphorically, walk through the processes using the technology and the skills and knowledge available. Walking through allows issues to be uncovered and corrective action made to processes and technology and training intervention made where needed. Walkthroughs are generally done in a group and are led by the process or deliverable owner. The second is to peer review work. Peer review allows colleagues who know about how to implement the deliverables to comment on present work, to trap issues, and ensure that all deliverables are compliant. The third is audit of deliverables against the contracted specification. If audit is done on early day deliverables, non-conformities can be trapped early in the deliverable process and corrective action taken. The fourth is simple inspection. Colleagues can be asked to quickly inspect the deliverables using their own experience of the specification and the process to trap errors before delivery. All make use of peers in the firm. All have the common aim of ensuring compliance. All aim to adjust the methods, skills, knowledge, and technology to achieve quality outcomes for both the firm and the customer. 4.4.5 Team building and cohesion through quality. Managers need to unite employees behind the firm's strategy. Quality improvement is often selected as one such strategy. Managers can heighten both commitment and engagement by involving employees in quality management activities. By participating in audit, for example, those not directly involved in deliverables can become aware of adjunct areas of the business. Designers can learn the reality of installation, for example, and purchasing executives can experience firsthand the results of their cost cutting. In fact, the whole company can heighten understanding. Using employees across the firm in quality assurance can have a huge unifying effect, but managers must allow time for it, and they must fully support it. 4.5 Patterns of Work Organisation. Before the Enlightenment in the 1800s, UK workers toiled in the fields in an agrarian economy. During the Enlightenment and its industrial revolutions, workers came in from the fields to toil collectively as employees in factories. This sustained as the predominant form until the UK lost its manufacturing prowess around 1980 and developed a dominant service arm to the economy. Today, services account for about 80% of economic output. When working in a factory, employees needed to be there together to cooperate. Services, on the other hand, can be worked on and delivered at almost any time and from almost anywhere with computer-mediated communications. Patterns of work and the necessary work organisation are now diverse. 4.5.1 Temporal nature of work. The UK still works to a normal business day of typically 9 a.m. to 5 p.m, giving 7.5 hours a day from Monday to Friday. Probably something like 50% of employees work those hours. But managers need flexibility. Most employees do offer to work outside of normal hours, either as paid overtime or as a formal or informal flexi-time system where additional hours worked are recovered when convenient for both the manager and employee. Reports indicate that UK employees work an average of 42 hours a week. This compares unfavourably with employees in other European countries, with Denmark working an average of 37 hours. Various studies suggest that productivity rises with lower hours, so working longer does not always benefit the firm. Some firms seek to increase their asset utilisation. There is, after all, no point in having expensive plant of any sort sitting idle from 5 p.m. through to 9 a.m. the next morning. Night working in several shifts is highly attractive. Great care is needed when introducing night working. It takes a particular type of person who's prepared to disrupt their natural rhythms to work when they should be sleeping. There have been many studies illustrating the detrimental effects on the human body of shift work. As discussed in Chapter 3, there are many types of employment contract, each adding a degree of flexibility for both employee and manager. 0-hours contracts allow the employee to be offered work ad hoc. The employee can refuse and can have similar arrangements with several firms, building a protean career, embracing flexibility and change. Careers researchers coined the term protean to describe a career that was made up of many different elements. Proteus, from which the term comes, was the Greek god of change. Employment contracts can specify less than, or indeed more than, normal hours, and contracts can be for a fixed term. Annualized hours is a further extreme case where the employee is contracted for, say, 1,650 hours per year. The understanding is that these hours are worked when demand for the firm's goods and services is greatest, perhaps during the summer. Generally, under annualized hours, pay is normalized to an equal monthly amount throughout the year. And finally, we live in a global business environment. Many firms have foreign outposts and many UK firms are outposts of foreign concerns. As a result, many employees, and particularly managers, find that they can be on a conference call early in the morning and late at night. Many live in what the sociologist Manuel Castells terms timeless time, where work and private time merge. Work has many temporal themes. It's for the manager to determine what their firm needs and what fits with the local labour market. 4.5.2 Spatial nature of work. As we note in Chapter 1, many firms are nuclear, with a headquarters and all employees assembling there to put in a 7.5-hour working day. But many are not. Many firms require staff to travel. Some will travel within the UK to meetings with partners, suppliers and customers. For others, that travel will be international. For some, the duration of this posting will be a day or so, whereas for others it may be months or even years. Whilst often travel is seen by employees as exciting, it does place obligations on managers for employee well-being and security. Travel is often linked to long working hours. There are many reasons why firms will operate branch offices or subsidiaries at some distance from the headquarters. Today, opening an office is easy with many flexible working space providers across the UK and worldwide. Often labour is more available or cheaper in the provinces or in other countries. And for firms trading over wide areas, the need for long-distance travel is reduced by having representatives on the customer's doorstep. And in the UK today, with perceived employment uncertainty and regional house price variations and difficulties remortgaging, few employees are prepared to relocate to be near a new employer. This, along with a desire on the part of firms to cut costs, has meant a rise in home working. The idea that all staff will work from a central location is gone. Managers must decide their attitude to such new organisational forms and make plans and implement what works best. 4.5.3 Achieving manager control. A manager needs to be assured that an employee will perform whenever and wherever they work. As other chapters will discuss, performance is a complex concept. It depends a lot on the characteristics of the job the employee does, their own motives, and the leadership they experience. In history, managers controlled their employees to achieve performance. Today, managers encourage employees to excel. Nonetheless, the manager's need for control gives rise to several guidance documents that set out the manager's expectations of performance. The first and most useful is the job description. We discussed this in 4.2.6 above. This defines the responsibilities and accountabilities of the job holder. We also discussed some of the ways of instructing employees in 4.2.4 and 4.2.5 above. Humans are also motivated by goals or objectives. Most people are encouraged by slightly stretching goals agreed between them and their managers. Documents should be used to express these goals. Documents are nothing, however, without continuous interaction between employee and manager to review progress and to continue encouragement and effective leadership. Lack of interaction and the review is a common failing in UK managers. Performance management is a continuous activity and not something invoked when performance is seen to degrade so far below expectations that formal processes are needed. Using a systems engineering analogy, intervention is needed as soon as the actual performance deviates from the reference or expected performance. We discussed this in Chapter 2 on leadership. The manager must therefore be continually comparing the two. Whilst the world of work may have moved away from a factory, employees still need to be managed to ensure that they perform. Computer-mediated communications assists in this, allowing performance management whenever and wherever the employee is working. 4.6 Working from home. The COVID pandemic of 2020 coincided with a general disquiet, particularly within younger employees, about how work constrained and choked people. The result was an enthusiasm when the UK government said, work from home. And the return post-COVID to the central workplace was slow and considered, with many firms adopting a hybrid home and office work location model. But few people are well organised to work from home. Modern homes are designed for living in. The assumption by the architects and builders is that those in the family who are economically active will spend most of the day commuting to a remote location to work. The others will be in school, playing or relaxing. No modern home is a work home, physically or legally. 4.6.1 The New Office. Simply, if people are to work from home for some or all of their time, their homes must be oriented towards that task. If firms and the government want people to work from home, both must assist in this. Here are a few of the issues to be discussed and concluded in reorienting a firm and some or all of its employees to work from home. 4.6.2 The Core Concept. In essence, the firm extends its workspace to the employee's home. That carries with it a big responsibility for all. For example, obligations in client and supplier contracts extend. Health and safety, the liability for health and safety, naturally extends. Unemployment law obligations naturally extend. Quality systems must be extended to sustain performance. Information security systems must be extended to maintain certification. Each must be considered fully and carefully. 4.6.3 Space and Physical Arrangement. There are as many forms of work homes as there are job types. For example, there's the software engineer's coding loft with its sit, stand, desk, large portrait monitors, high-power computers and high-speed internet connection. There's the osteopath's consulting room with its easy parking, patient waiting area, consulting room with treatment bed, and exercise area and technology. There's the administrator's simple station with its desk, comfortable chair, laptop and display. And all must have toilet and kitchen facilities too. Today, the UK Health and Safety and Wellbeing recommendation is a minimum of 11 cubic metres of space per person. That's around 5 square metres of ground space in the home, and it's very small. We'd suggest a minimum of 7 square metres for an office worker with minimum needs. Those with specialist technology, like an osteopath, will need considerably more. 4.6.4 Contracts, Time and Money. Typically, when an employee becomes a home worker, their contract will change to show the home as the normal place of work. If the firm wants the employee to travel to the firm from time to time, it will then need to pay the employee expenses and allow time. Of course, the firm's argument would be that the employee no longer need commute, and that this is a saving that can offset other emerging employee costs such as occasional travel, heating, electricity, broadband and facilities. There are also many issues about equity and fairness, particularly when mixing employment conditions across a workforce. 4.6.5 Management. Working from home demands that managers trust their employees. That in turn requires that employees reciprocate and earn that trust. Firms may need to redefine management and adopt the approaches and methods we advocate in this book. Central to that is clarity of role and expression in the job description of what's to be achieved. All will need objectives. All will need regular reviews. We describe management as a contact sport, and that must never be forgotten wherever work is done. Employee well-being must be managed differently. The daily casual opportunity to see colleagues has diminished. Managers must make deliberate effort to go and see employees, whether during their occasional in-work attendance or in the work home. 4.6.6 Confidentiality. Firms must keep private all information they store and process. This is enabled through process and practice. Hence, in information storage and processing extended to the work home, those processes and practices must apply there too. There are 2 key tenets. First, home working employees must only be able to access the information they need to do their job. Information processing systems should be partitioned by work group, work type or project. That way, any leak is of minimal use to a third party. Second, the employee should, by design, keep work and home life separate. In the workspace, desk, computer, tools and filing should be for work and should belong to the firm. 4.6.7 Permissions. In essence, by having the employee work from home, the firm extends its business activities from its premises to an employee's home. A small part of the employee's home is taken over by the firm for its benefit. In asking the employee to work from home, the manager must understand that this may create problems for the employee. Working from home will likely be in breach of the employee's mortgage or tenancy agreement, and the permission of mortgagor or landlord will be needed. Since the employer shifts its location to the home, it must also advise its insurers, since the employee now bears the employer's risk in their house. Areas of town are set aside for specific use. These use classes are currently described in the Town and Country Planning Use Classes Order of 1987. It's unusual for a zone to have dual use. If indeed a person is working from home and hence their property is in dual use, they would be due to pay both business rates and council tax. Practically, it's likely that a home office would only attract business rates if it did not return to domestic use at the end of the day. A spare room doubling as bedroom and office would likely not be separately rateable. A converted garage with suspended ceilings, separate door, customs desking would likely be separately rateable because its purpose is fixed and obvious. There's more on this in the Valuation Office Agency site on gov.uk. For various reasons, most people working from home in the UK do so illegally and simply keep quiet, keeping under the radar, hoping no one will notice, and there are no obvious fixes for these issues. 4.6.8 Future Trends. Houses are just not built for home working, and adaptation in space, services, heating, and the likes will be needed if the trend towards home working employees and suppliers is to be sustained. If reductions in carbon dioxide are to be achieved by governments, employees must travel less. Whilst the argument for a complete ban on commuting is strong, such an all-or-nothing approach negates worker need for affiliation and the manager need for interaction. A compromise perhaps suggests a mixed work regime, working at home for part of the week but travelling to a shared workspace for the remainder. Working from home and working flexibly requires the worker to be in communications and able to pass data just as if they were in the office or other workspace. But the UK is relatively poorly connected. Broadband, offering at least 30 megabits a second in the downstream, or greater connectivity, covers 96% of population. The government's aim is to deliver an in-the-office equivalent gigabit capability to 85% by 2025. Mobile networks could take up the slack to achieve 99% population coverage, but their evolution is pitifully slow. Connectivity is improving, but it has a way to go. Presently, with employees travelling to a place of work, their homes are typically utilised for only 60% of time. Likewise, firms occupy their premises for only 35%. If workplace and home become one, and the parties share the costs, building utilisation skyrockets, and that's good. Firms can dispense with the big corporate offices. The result is a space continually occupied and heated. Cost reduction is a big motivator in firms in supporting this pressure. For now, it's only one segment of the labour corps who benefit from the flexibility and working from home revolution. Perhaps, though, we will see a day when manufacturing employees will produce widgets on a home production line and dispatch direct to customers. Or perhaps it will be just too difficult for blue-collar staff to join their white-collar colleagues. For that, there will need to be a significant work-home adoption and adaptation. But the drivers for change are there, but so are the difficulties. Time will tell if flexibility and home working will take hold universally. 4.7 Brand building. Customers buy because the brand gives a promise of a desired emotional experience. Brand is how the firm looks and feels to its customers. Customers experience a firm's brand at touch points where they encounter it, like the point of sale when the customer meets the salesperson, or the point of use of the firm's product when the customer tries to enjoy benefit. Clearly, the firm can change the customer experience at those touch points, and hence the firm is in command of its brand. Brand is dependent on the people associated with the firm. People create the firm's capability, whether by their own efforts or by using technology or a mix of the two. And whilst brand takes time to build, it can be destroyed in an instant. 4.7.1 Determining how you want to look. Frequently, managers determine that their brand looks tired and needs to be refreshed. They decide that some empathic words and artifacts like logo and website are needed to express modern ideas. Straplines are developed like the listening bank, describing the Midland Bank around 1992 before its merger with HSBC. Such a strapline that aims to depict brand values presumes that employees have, in the Midland example, the time to listen, the skills and knowledge to interpret what the customer is telling them, and the motivation to act and improve the customer's utility of the firm's products and services. If brand is about customer experience at touchpoints, that experience depends on those employees' competencies and behaviors. Brand building is therefore about building those competencies and behaviors at those customer touchpoints. 4.7.2 Identifying touchpoints. We might imagine that touchpoints are where the customer and staff meet. Touchpoints extend to all points where the customer experiences the firm, its goods and its services. This means that touchpoints are to be found right back in research and development, where products are developed. Figure 4.6 shows the touchpoints for a product like an Apple laptop. Whilst R&D may not be visible to the customer, they experience this point during use and in the pride that brings. Utility and pride stem from the excellence in R&D engineers. Many would argue that Apple succeeds because of its R&D. Competencies and behaviors are key to brand, and managers control those by hiring, managing, and developing the right people. Brand is much more than a few wacky artifacts. 4.8 Innovating to stay ahead. There are many definitions of innovation. Here's one that's developed by the UK Federation of Communication Services to judge one of its innovation awards that aims to cover most of the bases. An innovation is a new or evolved method, process, idea, product, service, algorithm, or concept that is realized through a discernible process by a group of people to have a value and an impact on the firm and its customers. To be an innovation, the new or evolved method, process, idea, product, service, algorithm, or concept must be able to be applied at an economical cost and must satisfy a need. An innovation can solve a new need or problem in a new way, or an existing need or problem in a new way, or just be a different application of old science. To be an innovation, there must be an evident step between the new state and a previous old state. Innovation involves deliberate application of information, imagination, and initiative in deriving greater or different values from resources. Innovation includes all processes by which new ideas are generated and converted into useful solutions. And most importantly, innovation is a huge source of competitive advantage to firms. We defined competitive advantage in Chapter 1 as the state where customers would prefer to buy from the firm than from its competitors, and that the firm trades with lower costs and hence higher margins than its competitors. Firms innovate to differentiate their products and services and to optimize their costs. All managers must encourage and manage innovation. 4.8.1 Implementing innovation practice. The primary problem for all managers is that innovation can't be driven. In the same way as an artist, composer, or poet can't be forced to produce a great piece of work, an employee can't be forced to innovate. Innovation happens when the right people are employed on the right tasks in the right environment. If anything's wrong, innovation won't happen. So what's right and wrong? What encourages and what blocks innovation? 4.8.2 Structuring for innovation. Fundamentally, there must be something to be done to enable innovation. There must be some identifiable tasks on which people work and on which they could investigate and explore options for improvement. And as the definition above suggests, there must be a group addressing the tasks. Innovation is a group activity. Individuals are creative, groups are innovative. Typically, the greater the focus, the greater the purpose, and hence the more likely innovation will occur. There needs to be a modicum of time pressure, not too much, or everyone ignores possibilities. But each person needs enough spare effort to go off-piste from time to time to explore options. Each person needs to know that they can take a risk and explore. It's no good closing all options down and driving for specific outcomes. 4.8.3 Formal innovation. Many commentators confuse innovation and formal research and development. R&D is the business activity that aims to realize new products and services. Generally, it's well-funded, and indeed, innovation may occur during formal R&D. But innovation is different. R&D is meant to produce new products. When innovation occurs from everyday business activities, managers rejoice because it costs little and has significant impact on the outcomes. There are, however, approaches to planned innovation, not forced, but enabled. It's always possible to look for ideas in other unrelated businesses or industries. Here, employees involved scan activities and spot opportunities that can be ported from one environment to another. Such discoveries come from the deliberate search for new knowledge. When staff undertake any form of advanced learning, the knowledge and skills acquired are often a catalyst for discovery. Continuous professional development is a thriving environment for ideas. Those ideas need to be encouraged and developed. But ideas are nothing unless they are considered, evaluated, and supported, or dumped. Formal innovation requires a process for ideas development, rejection, or adoption. 4.8.4 Innovation Climate. All innovation needs the right culture, what some refer to as the innovation climate. Figure 4.7 shows a typical culture or climate that fosters innovation. Here's a brief explanation describing the diagram for an innovative firm. Each phrase describes a position between extreme left and extreme right on the 6 horizontal bars. Innovation is a team game, so there's no space for individual or self-focus. All employees should be goal-oriented. The ideas will be found in an externally driven firm, one that welcomes customer involvement. Whilst it doesn't do to be too easygoing, a strict culture focuses on outcomes to the detriment of innovation. Culture, therefore, should be somewhere between easygoing and strict. And looking to local management for ideas stokes egos, while a professional focus casts a wide net. Employees, therefore, should be professionally focused. If employees know what's needed because business performance is shared in an open culture, this helps develop the context for innovation. And finally, focusing on employees rather than the work helps them build the confidence needed to take those all-important risks. Building a culture is not a perfect science, but with the wrong culture, innovation will not flourish. We discuss culture further in Chapter 5. 4.9 Sustaining Business. Various commentators talk of sustainability as if it's about embracing green environmental policies, saying how the firm will reduce its environmental impact. But such a definition is much, much too narrow. Sustainability is about managers setting out how they intend to maintain the firm in the long term, at or about its present activity level, or indeed after growth plans are implemented. Sustainability is therefore simply defined as its being in business tomorrow despite all the threats on the firm. Figure 4.8 shows a mental process for achieving sustainability. The diagram should be read as a process, stepping from left to right, and we describe each step below. There are typically about 8 other general areas of business in which there are threats: environmental management, information security, privacy, quality, business continuity, health and safety, employee well-being, and business risk. In addition, there are a plethora of other risks to be managed in specific firms, such as those operating in shipping, nuclear energy, or biomedical research. Your firm will have its own threats and risks, and you will need to run your own risk management process and develop your own specific controls. Here's how to consider the impact of the 6 activities that we set out in Figure 4.8 with their contribution to sustainability. The following describe the cascade from left to right. (4.8) 4.9.1 Strategy and Sustainability. Sustainability begins with strategy. The manager must provide the context and objectives for sustainability, defining the area of operations to be protected and the implications for the business if untoward events occur. The stage should identify why sustainability is important and the business activity is affected if the business is not sustainable. This is relatively easily done using the strategy building tools in Chapter 1. 4.9.2 Identifying assets. Each firm has important assets which, if disrupted, will endanger operations. In information security, this will be information assets, like knowledge bases and source code. In privacy, this will extend to CRM databases containing information on customers. Before an asset can be protected from loss or failure, it must be identified by its nature, location, and content. 4.9.3 Assessing threats. All assets are under some threat or other. Before protection can be planned, those threats must be identified. For a firm working in central London, relying on employees commuting to work, strikes by public transport workers can be a big threat. And where employees face relentless pressure to perform, stress can be a significant source of absenteeism from burnout. Most threats involve people. Employees make errors. Sometimes they are coerced or induced to do things against the firm. Sometimes managers do crass things that affect employees. Suppliers will let managers down. Customers will delay payments. And sometimes employees just don't have the skills and knowledge to prevent mistakes. 4.9.4 Determining risks. Just because an asset might be under threat does not mean that there's a risk of disruption. Risk is calculated by considering the chance of occurrence of the threat and its impact on the asset, and of course the loss of business as a result. Managers will need to set a threshold of risk above which they will act to control the threat, reducing the risk to some residual risk that they find acceptable. No firm can reduce all risks to zero. There are a host of approaches to risk assessment. We consider that describing all risks by their financial impact is one of the better approaches. 4.9.5 Implementing controls. Risks that are scored as significant must have controls developed to reduce the risk to an acceptable residual level. Insurance can then be taken out to cover that residual chance. Controls might involve training and development of employees to improve skills and knowledge, or they might involve introducing new processes such as peer review of work. In extreme cases, controls might involve replacing employee competence and behavior with technology function as described in 4.3. Managers should also be aware of the risk in fostering a high-risk culture in pursuit of financial results, accepting all risk in search of progress. Indeed, some entrepreneurs espouse a blitzkrieg approach, crashing forward swiftly, ignoring the collateral and the direct damage caused. Some live by the move fast and break things mantra. Such an approach is never sustainable. 4.9.6 Auditing. Once controls are in place, the policies, practices and procedures must run, and inspection, walkthroughs, audits and review used to show that controls are effective. 4.10 Chapter Summary. A firm doesn't just work. Someone, the manager, must determine in detail what the firm is to do now and how it's to do it. The firm as a system and in turn as a series of processes involving people and technology must be defined. This definition starts with the contract that the firm has with its customers. The contract of sale sets out what's to be delivered. This contract with its deliverables can be expressed or implied. Either way, it's to be complied with. The manager's job is then making order from chaos. They must shape the firm to be predictable. Predictability comes from determining the processes and determining the people and technology in each. We discussed that predictability and processes can't be guessed. Modelling is essential. There are several models that are particularly useful here. The concept model, capturing the whole firm. The use case model, showing who does what. And the process engineering models using flowcharting. We also illustrate the overarching systems model, the model of the systems incorporating the processes, showing systems boundaries. Modeling enables managers to set out what is, to exercise that, and to show what might be if changes are made. The as is and the to be are key statements in determining change. But still, people must be told what to do in a firm. Even if they're expert professionals, consistency demands defined methods. It's the manager's job to instruct their people. We put forward the work breakdown structure as the most significant tool to convey necessary activity, and we illustrate how even a hairdressing salon could make use of such thinking. The WBS conveys to the employees what the firm has agreed with its customer. Of course, the WBS and other methods of work definition can't and shouldn't set out every detail. The employees' competencies and behaviours should give them the ability to interpret high-level work definitions and to do what's needed. It's for the manager to determine the level of abstraction of such definitions. Too much detail threatens employee job satisfaction. Too little risks poor quality and misunderstandings. We develop several definitions of quality, but centre on the thought that quality is doing what is agreed with the customer, even if that agreement is tacit and the subject of societal norms. Quality also depends on technology function and the competencies and behaviours of the employees using the technology. We illustrate that managers can change the technology or change the competencies and behaviours of the employees to achieve the desired capability. That leads us to the where and the when of processes and work done, and the definition of working hours and the spatial nature of the firm. All managers must recognise the modern trends of flexible working, timeless time, and distributed workforces. This flexibility trend has been amplified by the COVID pandemic, where as many as 45% of UK employees worked from home, with many enjoying huge improvements in work-life balance. We have characterised this idea of home working by describing what's needed. We define the location where work is done as the work home. Critically, we point out that if working from home is to become a norm, dwelling design, government regulations, and mortgage and rental contracts must change to facilitate work homes for all. The systems of the firm would be incomplete without discussion about innovation. Innovation is a badly understood and badly defined word, and to help managers, we develop a clear definition. This leads us to look at how managers can encourage innovation in their firms, and hence what organisational culture is needed for innovation to happen. Finally, we ask what makes a firm sustainable. And sustainability is not about the firm's green credentials. Sustainability is the ability of the firm to still be in business, satisfying customers and employing people in the years to come. We present sustainability as the ability to counter threats to the business, and we set out an approach involving identification of strategy, threat identification, risk assessment, and the use of controls to sustain performance for the long term.